welcome back to Patient Win Insider. I'm Nick Moen, and today I'm joined by Dr. Joe Chichetti, founder of Chichetti and Patel Dental Wellness in Charlotte, North Carolina. Dr. Chichetti has spent nearly 2 decades blending research, technology, and artistry in dentistry, most recently developing the groundbreaking Harmony Protocol, an airway-to-prosthetic workflow that's reshaping how we think about aesthetics and function. So today we're talking about innovation, lessons learned from 18 years in private practice, and what it takes to build something truly original in modern dentistry. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, so excited to be here. I'm glad you all invited me.
Thanks. Well, so let's just get into kind of the journey that you've been, going from researcher to clinician, educator, now innovator with the Harmony Protocol. What pushed you to create something like the Harmony Protocol after nearly 20 years in practice?
Yeah. So it was. Well, I've always asked questions. I've always noticing trends, noticing things, and practicing as long as I have. Why is this way? I see this in this patient's mouth. I see it in this patient's mouth. What could be contributing to that? And is there a possible etiology that could lead to a more definitive solution? And maybe that has to do with my research background. What I'll do is I'll give a brief synopsis. I researched at NIH for a bit in genetic epidemiology before deciding to become a dentist. I went to school at University of Louisville, residency at Wake Forest, stayed on as faculty at the hospital, which I still am. We lecture the residents pretty regularly. At which point I met my wife and moved to Charlotte from Winston-Salem. That's where Wake Forest is, and purchased a practice. And we've worked really hard to build it to where it is. And during that journey, our daughter came along, and this is how the Harmony Protocol comes about. Okay, so this will all make sense. But she had an airway problem as a toddler. And it was scary. We felt helpless at times. And what that looked like as parents was gasping, choking, at times felt like she wasn't breathing at night, grinding loud enough to where you could hear it down the hall. And we didn't really find a lot of answers going to the pediatrician. The suggestion was myofunctional therapy, which we did, and we had a great myofunctional therapist, but I felt very quickly that I could do this and potentially do it better. And so I went ahead, my wife and I, both of us, and I want to be clear, my wife is co-founding the new practice with me, the Harmony, became myofunctional therapists, and we treated her, and it worked. She sleeps through the night, mouth closed, no choking, and her development changed positively too, her facial development. Wow. Then I started noticing my daughter's mouth and some of my patients' mouths, particularly the patients who were being referred to me by sleep physicians for mandibular advancement devices. And the other thing I started noticing is with the proper development and the positive facial change she was having, the smile was just really over the top. So I started integrating this into my aesthetic treatment. We get a lot of Dr. Patel and I, she's my partner at Chichetti and Patel Dental Wellness, total rock star, by the way. We get patients seeking us out for aesthetic solutions. Most patients are pretty well researched if they're asking for that, meaning they'll come in and say, I want crowns, I want veneers. But I've found that in treatment planning around the airway, making sure we have a large, full airway, they're not only sleeping better, feeling better, thriving, but the facial aesthetic the cases are just crazy, the before and after.
Sure.
So that's really how the Harmony Protocol came to be. And then essentially we're getting these crazy results. These patients are going crazy for us, telling as many people as they can. And my wife, she's like, you have to systematize this. You need to develop this into a repeatable way for other doctors to use, including in our practice. And, it's funny, Amy and I've been blessed to be married to Amy for a long time at this point. And when you're a dental spouse, particularly if you work at the practice, she runs our practice. Yeah. They learn a lot of dentistry through osmosis.
Sure.
So we can have pretty productive clinical conversations. But anyway, I'm listing it out. She's like, simpler. Patients and doctors need to understand this. And boom, the protocol was born. And it's basically 9 points that we need to see for everything to be right. And we educate the patients on what these 9 points are. There's 3 points in the airway column, 3 points in the functional column. And the last 3 points are in aesthetic, and then we utilize our digital technology to show them where they're at and how many things they basically might or might not have on the list.
Sure.
And that kind of drives treatment. Acceptance is very, very high with that. They get it and they get it quick. And we've had very repeatable results. So we are involved with some companies help supporting us with research, particularly on the airway change throughout the process, which I would love to be able to publish in the next couple of years. So that's kind of, I kind of went to it pretty quick. There's a lot more detail and a lot more stories along the way. But in a nutshell, if I had to describe, really the trigger to do something different, the trigger to ask the sorts of questions to hopefully get a better outcome, it all started with solving my daughter's problem.
Sure. So it really hits close to home.
Yeah.
Well, what's the biggest out of the 9 points? Like, what do you feel is like the most innovative point, and what's maybe the most challenging point, or common challenge?
Sure. So let's do this. Why don't I'll give you the 9 points, and then I'll answer that question. So in the airway, there's three areas. We want a airway map, and we were able to map the airway with our CBCT of at least 100 square millimeters. Okay. And why that number is important is because the average trachea is 3 centimeters in diameter. So if you decrease that by that much, the airflow becomes turbulent. It's not laminar. You're not breathing basically in a straight line. The air is going every which way. It would be like pinching your nose, putting a straw on your lips, and then walk around your house 3 times, breathing through that straw. How are you going to feel? You're going to be using all these accessory muscles. So that's a very important point. The other one is we want a U-shaped arch, or an arch width to length ratio between 45 and 53%. And what that means is just that, a U-shaped arch. If you're above 53%, it's a narrow arch. And this is as if you were looking at an occlusal view, if that helps you. If it's below 45%, you have a squatty arch, if you will, kind of a squared off arch. And the third point is you want low upper airway resistance. These are the 3 points out of the 9 within the Harmony protocol. Now, the last 2 points, arch shape and airway resistance, are kind of interrelated, because if you have a narrow arch, or you have a arch that's not very long, if you will, and that's usually because the incisors are retroclined. Sorry, I'm looking at my picture here. Sure. Both of those situations drive the tongue backwards, okay? And if the tongue's going backwards, it's getting in the way, and that causes air resistance as you're breathing, okay? So those are those 3 points. Now, on the functional side, we want good myofunctional habits and healthy TMJs. We want a level curve of Spee, okay? And the curve of Spee is the bite line, if you will.
Yeah.
So, and Nick, help me if I'm kind of working under the assumption that your dental terminology is up to speed, but if you feel like I need to explain something, please let me know. So the 3 areas in function: healthy myofunctional habits and healthy TMJs, that's 1 point. A level curve of Spee, that's the 2nd point. And good canine and protrusive guidance, meaning protective guidance while the patient's going through function. That's 6 out of the 9, that's in functional. And then under aesthetic, we want a full buccal corridor, so a full smile, full buccal corridor. So when the patient smiles, you see the teeth all the way back, not blank spaces between, a positive smile line. We want a good tooth and a good tooth width to length ratio as well, with number 8 and 9. That's absolutely critical. And what's amazing with these 9 points is everything is interrelated. Okay, so if you get a proper arch width to length ratio, pretty good chance you're going to have that full buccal corridor. Sure. But you're also going to have lower airway resistance.
Yeah.
Okay. Level curve of Spee, you have less chance of that excess tooth wear, where that width length to ratios where it should be.
Sure.
So that's where the light started going off for me, and showing patients this. If we fix this, it's actually going to take care of this.
Yeah.
It really helps them. And to all my colleagues out there, we all do cosmetic dentistry, right? But one of the patient's biggest pain points is they don't know what to do. They do their research online and whatnot, and they come in to the office, say, I want to look better, but they don't know what to do. This is what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Follow these steps. And for patients, it's a very easy decision. So you're helping me functionally. You're potentially helping me breathe better and sleep better. It's very easy and it's predictable and it works. So there tends to be a big orthodontic component with this, and we take the CBCTs along the way, not just before and after. And it looks like stair steps as the airway gets bigger and bigger. Our airway software, it's CICAT software, SICAT, anything below 100 square millimeters is red. So you'll see that red just go down and down and down. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, that's really it in a nutshell. The key, however, with presentation, because you can't just drop this on patients, is leveraging the technology to the hilt. One of the biggest things that changed my life in practice, going from a struggling practice, and that's a heck of a story, which I'm happy to tell. And I want to be clear, we were a struggling practice, to significant, huge, pinch myself growth, was utilization of the technology, not just purchasing it, but make sure you're using it to the 100th percentile. And I still feel like we can do, every day I'm trying to see how we can use that better. And there's areas where we're even working on now. And we have all the stuff, so to speak. But that when you leverage that technology properly, it's very easy for patients to see the value. So it just helps them so much, and their dentistry lasts longer.
Yeah.
So
What's case acceptance like? Like, what sort of rates are we talking once you introduce the Harmony protocol during?
So we leverage. We were big with Dental Intel for quite a while. And we were traveling on our larger cases, between 80 and 90% on this. It worked very, very well. Now, there's a difference between case acceptance and treatment acceptance. We kind of leverage both. Treatment acceptance is they get up to the desk and they're like, let's get this party started, right now. Case acceptance if they accept within a year. So what I've found is we never lose these patients. They sometimes it's just got to fit into their lives and things to that effect. But acceptance is very, very high. So it's been great, and it makes the dentistry much more predictable, in my opinion, as well, because a lot of these are reworks. Okay, a lot of these are pay. I had one. This was a really amazing situation. A doctor took my course in June, and he reached out. He practices close to me. And he reached out to me and he said, I have a situation. I've restored this patient and she's not happy, and I need to open up a vertical dimension. I'm not comfortable doing that. And I do that a lot. We do a lot of this. There's a lot of prosthetic work with this, a lot of ortho, but it's not uncommon for me to help patients with a full mouth reconstruction.
Sure.
Okay, because if I increase that vertical dimension, that's decreasing airway resistance.
Right.
Because sometimes I can't expand it. So anyway, he sent her, and this sweet lady. I mean, she'd probably spent about 30K already on her mouth and within the past year. But when she saw the visuals, and I'm able to say, this is your problem. Yeah. If we fix this, it'll solve the issues. I mean, she was, ready to go. And I mean, I feel like that's almost a bigger metric to measure over acceptance, because if a patient is reinvesting in dentistry based on what they're seeing through the protocol, particularly that soon after already investing in dentistry, yeah. So it works. It works really well. We're really excited about it.
Well, and I can imagine that. I mean, you said when you started, it was a struggle, right? And I imagine one thing was potentially case acceptance because you weren't able to, share this specific protocol, right? Like, what was that like?
Yeah. So you'd like to hear that struggle story? It's a good one. It's a good one. Everyone, sit down. You'll like this one. So, like I said, I was practicing. I finished my residency and I stayed on as faculty at Wake Forest School of Medicine. So I was teaching residents, but I was also an associate in a local group practice. And that was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I then met my wife, and she lived in Charlotte. And I don't want to get into the weeds about that too much, but basically I figured out really quick I needed to get my rear end down to Charlotte and marry her as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And in doing so, the best way for me to make that transition was to buy a practice.
Sure.
And I went through a broker, and there was a practice that was a new build and had a decent patient population. And I didn't do nearly the amount of due diligence I should have because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
But I bought it. But where this story gets tough is the way we transitioned. We closed on the deal on Friday.
Yeah.
That following Monday, he had a surprise pizza lunch. I remember that was pizza for his staff. Okay. In the break room. He texted me in the parking lot. I came in, he walked out, and we had the signs turned over in about 36 hours.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't recommend that strategy. And the reason for that is everyone was pretty upset. Patients, the staff was very, as they should be, who is this joker who's my boss now? Am I going to be able to keep my job? All that sort of thing. I mean, we probably only retained about half the patients, and it was tough because I paid goodwill for much more than half. And if the selling doctor is not there to extend that goodwill, you're not really getting your money's worth. So anyway, fast forward to about a year later, and I mean, we're getting pretty nervous. And I'll never forget, I had a month where I had 10 whole crowns on the month, and I was excited because I might be able to pay myself.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. Yeah.
That's how hard it was. Okay. I was doing stuff on weekends to make money. I mean, it was crazy. Anyway, long and short of it, the lab bill came in and I wasn't going to be able to pay myself. So I figured out real quick that we needed to do something. And I was offered to take a course on CERAC technology. And the course had the right price. It was free. So I took it. Okay. And we scanned and milled crowns all day. It was a long course. I was there for like 9 or 10 hours. It was right here in Charlotte. So, and we were milling Emacs. And I came out of that, and I talked to Amy, and Amy is she was a senior vice president at Wells Fargo. I mean, when it comes to business and finances, she knows her stuff. Okay, so this was very much a business conversation as well as a spousal conversation. I said, I think this could be a game changer in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Problem is it costs about $140,000 that we don't have. So but we decided it was the right move to make. Said a prayer in the truck, and I walked in and signed the contract. And a week later, we had an Omnicam and MCXL, and our revenue doubled the first year.
Wow. How did you advertise that you were able to, that you had, CERAC tools?
We did not advertise at all. We marketed our experience through inpatient referrals. We trained on invitations. We still do that now. So if a patient, we rehearse our patient experience, we role play. I mean, every piece of the patient walking in, we practice how they're greeted. We practice how they're brought back. My partners developed kind of a comfort menu, Dr. Patel, for patients as well. Sure. And then we try to wow them with our technology to make it seamless. My assistant and I are good at for about, we can get a single crown done in about 70 minutes. And then, when we sit them up and say, how do you do? They're like, this is amazing. Or if they say something positive, I then take that opportunity to compliment them as a patient, telling them they're a good patient. And then that's when we'll insert the invitation. And in my chair, how that looks like is like, you know what, Mrs. So-and-so, or Mr. Nick, you know what, Mr. Nick, you were such an amazing patient to work on today. If I had 10 more patients like you, I wouldn't have any gray hair.
Yeah, right.
If you have any friends and family who'd like to come see me, I'd really appreciate it. But if they're not like you, don't send them. So yeah. So that sort of stuff, keep them laughing. But that line right there is worth $1 million at least. I can't even tell you how many patients we've gotten from that. But anyway, we built the practice through that. And we kept growing and growing and growing, and just really got a reputation as a place that had all the technology. And we kept reinvesting in the technology which would coincide with investing in my CE. We realized we actually got a bigger ROI, or maybe pretty close to the same ROI on continuing education as well as the technology. And so but that meant, one of your bigger occlusion treatment planning type programs like your Spee or your COIS, that sort of stuff. I'm a big Spee disciple. I went through all that stuff. And so we invested heavily. We spent well over six figures on that once we saw what it could be. That definitely perpetuated the growth. And we work hard to still stay in front of the technology.
Yeah.
Patients love it. They appreciate it. They really like that we have our in-house lab that makes. I do 90% of all my own lab work, even on my full mouth reconstructions. I still make them all.
Wow.
And they appreciate that, but it's because I can turn them over fast. So the way I like to do it is, if I'm doing a full mouth reconstruction via Harmony protocol, trying to increase the vertical dimension to level the curve of Spee, canine guidance, full buccal corridor, proper width to length ratio, all the 9 points. And a recon can do that depending on the situation. We'll prep them on a Monday. I obviously pre-plan with a proper mock-up and that sort of thing that I print out. I'll put them I call them a placeholder provisional for a day or two while we design the case. Then I print a full prototype of the final design, and they wear that to make sure they're happy, make sure they're excited. And I set high expectations. I was like, Mrs. Jones, I want selfies. I want to hear if people are complimenting you. I want you to feel great. And you let me know. And if something's not where it needs to be, we can adjust it easily at this point, capture it, digitally adjust it. And the patients feel very much in control with that, but in a collaborative sense. They're not driving the bus by any means, but they don't get upset. And I'll tell them that, if one pops out, that just tells me I need to make an adjustment to the design.
Yeah, right.
The good news, that doesn't really happen very often, but when it does, there's something in the occlusion I got to fix. And then when they're ready, we switch them out, and that can be as quick as 3 weeks. I did one in 2.5 days. I don't prefer to do that at all. I don't recommend that. Some of my they do it all the time. They can have at it. I was just a little too much stress for me. We have a lot of patients who travel. Patients will fly in, and you want to get as much done as you can. But anyway, point being, the technology and the in-house lab, as a result of the technology, has been added a lot of value to our practice for our patients.
Yeah,
they really appreciate it.
What's some new technology that you've just adapted that you feel is making a huge difference?
I am a big proponent of connected technology via the DS Core platform. Okay, with Dentsply Sirona. Okay, it is a mint as far as treatment presentation.
Sure.
It's very easy to underutilize. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff under the hood that, if utilized properly, can make a huge difference. So, for example, new patient comes in, 3D CBCT, SICAT software to show the airway, PrimeScan 2, which is an amazing scanner. It's faster than the PrimeScan, but you have to have a great internet connection. That's the one key with connected, is we're a gig up and a gig down with our internet. Wow, so and on fiber. So it's all. So anyway, so how it looks to a patient, and how it's better is CBCT taken, that's automatically sent to core. PrimeScan 2 is taken, that's automatically sent to core. Staff takes the photos, uploads them to core very quickly. That's easy to do. And then any x-rays taken at site access go directly to core. Okay. Then that is all organized on what's called the canvas on core. So everything's nice, neat, and tidy, and it's presented to the patient on the big screen TV in the op, not on the computer with wheels. I'm not clicking through tabs here, there, and the other. Right. It's, here's your airway, here's your occlusion and bite, here are the 9 points, and here's a picture of your smile. Yeah. Here's how they're all interrelated. Wow. And then the icing on the top is like, you're like, wow, this is amazing. Well, I'm going to email this to you so you get it, and we can send that canvas to the patient. and they get it on their phone right there, boom.
Right.
When I adjust the canvas, it adjusts to them. So say a patient, and these plans are investments, okay? So they need to think about it, and we're not in the insurance game either. So I mean, it affects them. So they might call and say, I don't quite understand this. And I'll say, Mrs. Jones, go to the canvas. I'm going to add another picture so you can see it. Boom, right there. So that's where it really helps. Now, what also is really, really cool about the connected technology is we can keep scanning. The doctors in our practice, we're not anchored to the CEREC machine to design.
Sure.
Because not only does our PrimeScan 2 go to core, but we have 2 other PrimeScans as well. They go to core. So say I'm doing a crown, I'll scan the impression, hand the scanner to the assistant who might give it to hygiene or the other assistant might be scanning bite guards in the other room. I just go to my design station, bring it down, design right there, and go. The minutes add up very quickly.
Yeah. Well, do you feel like, aside from the human touch, obviously with technology, AI is playing a big part in how things are advancing? Are you utilizing that at all?
So, yeah, I like AI a lot with crown design,
Okay.
particularly with single units. I think it's going to be helpful as far as caries detection. Okay.
Yeah.
Although the research doesn't quite support that yet. It's only batting about 500, depending on what paper you read. So we have to be careful with that. But I think there's going to be an opportunity. I think AI is definitely going to help everything like it's helping everything else. But this is my personal opinion, and I'm sure there'll be people who disagree with me a little bit. But the businesses that are going to be able to separate themselves are going to be the businesses that utilize AI but don't depend on it, and then market that. So I often joke with patients. They'll be like, "Was that AI?" And I'm like, is that artificial intelligence?" I said, "I think that's assisted intelligence.
Sure.
It's just
Yeah.
kind of helping me out. It's me who finishes it, that sort of thing." And some patients really appreciate that. But the efficiencies that AI brings are incredible, and particularly with caries detection, just getting the conversation started can be so important.
Yeah.
But I think all these tools at our fingertips are super helpful, but they're not going to replace that doctor to patient interaction. That patient has to feel understood. They have to feel like you are looking them in the eye and that you hear their concerns. And that brings up another good point. I don't present anything via the Harmony protocol with everything I just described without understanding that patient's why. Why are
Sure.
you here? Because if you don't know that, then you could be way off. And so, like, a great example is just simply asking your patient, why are you here today? And then they answer, why now? And, for example, I had a patient, well, my daughter gets married in a year and I want to look good for the wedding. Okay. Well, here, and I got the airway map, everything. I'm in the operatory right now.
Yeah.
All right, Mrs. Jones. Well, if we do aligners for 9 months and then we do 10 veneers up top and 10 veneers on the bottom, you're going to look amazing in those wedding pictures. So that's boom. This doc knows what my goal is. So that's that. And I don't think artificial intelligence can replace that. And once again, I'm not poo pooing it at all.
Right.
But I don't think, I think we have to be careful not to be overly dependent on it. It's a great tool, and that's all it is. It's a tool.
Well, where do you think it's going in the next 10? What does the future of dentistry look like in like the next 10 years with technology or what's like a dream scenario or tool that you need in order to further implement the Harmony protocol?
I think the diagnostics are going to get better, meaning we're going to be able to find things earlier and we're going to be able to find things in total. So what I mean for that, it's not just going to be caries detection. It's not just going to be airway mapping. It's going to be, okay, this airway map leads to this VO2 max volume. Okay, these we're detecting all these caries. This indicates the saliva pH might be this. There's going to be a lot of systemic integration. And then I think that's one. So diagnostics are going to be really high. Technology is going to do a lot of the diagnostic work for us, but we're going to ultimately have to make the proper clinical decisions.
Yeah.
Okay. Because even though it says it's there, or this is something that can mean a totally different things from patient to patient. The other thing I think technology is going to bring us are real lifelike simulations of the work that we're doing. Okay. You go to the movies now and you see this amazing actor doing whatever, and it's a computer. It's not even a person.
Yeah.
So who's to say that we can't show a patient a full simulation of facial change after taking a CBCT and of facial change, smile change, via this sort of technology. So that I think patient communication is going to go through the roof. It's going to go through the roof, and it'll become more. It's going to become more efficient, particularly with the connected piece, the connected technology.
Yeah,
that makes a big difference. But I also think so. Communication, simulation. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Talking about the future. I had one other thing. It'll come back. I promise. Okay. So, but that's in a nutshell. That's where it's manufacturing times. That's the other thing. So right now with certain zirconias, we can mill in under 10 minutes and fire in under 10 minutes.
Yeah.
3D printing crowns, I use them only for prototype situations. I'm a little weary of them for a permanent scenario, and the reason that is the flexural strength.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like the hybrid ceramics from about 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
You do this long enough, there's cycles, things become popular, then they're not, then they come back again. It kind of feels like that. So I'm being cautiously optimistic with that. But speed of manufacturing, I think that's going to
that makes sense. Well, so in 10 years, then you'll be looking back at a 30-year career at that point, and what do you want your legacy to be like? What do you want your peers and patients to remember you by when you're looking back and the technology's changed drastically?
When you ask that question, impact is the first word that comes to mind. When we bring a patient through the Harmony protocol, for a lot of our patients, it's very much a transformative experience. It's a line in the sand. It's that before and after moment. Okay, I could show you cases that could knock your socks off, and all these patients want me to tell the world. They know I travel both nationally and internationally teaching this, and they all can use my case at a course. I mean, they all get into it. So I feel like I'm going to be able to impact patients' lives with that, and it's really cool because we'll touch base a year out and like, you know what, I finally had the courage to start that business.
Yeah.
I was finally able to lose all that weight, and Doc says it's because I'm sleeping better. That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel like I can impact my patients the most. I feel like we can impact dentistry the most through the Institute. So in our new location, we're building in some large classrooms, and we're hosting courses there, teaching this protocol. It's 3 2-day courses. The first 2 days on airway, the second 2 on function, the third on aesthetics. That's a lot of information, even condensing it to 6 days. But that's how I know how we can help dentistry as a whole, because this can make doctors' lives much less stressful. Because one of the things about Harmony, just like in treating my daughter, it gets to the etiology. Yeah. It gets to the etiology. This sets you up for the best long-term prognosis. Because no doctor wants to redo their work.
No, yeah.
No doctor wants to tell you, I want to place a filling in this molar and then put a crown on it in 10 years. No one wants to do that.
Yeah. So
that's where I think, that's our hope. That's where we can impact people the most. And I taught this at DS World about a month ago. We got a great response. We had about 35 doctors sign up. The first courses are in April. And then I'm teaching at Hinman in Atlanta, the Hinman Conference in Atlanta in March. And that's going to be a big one for us leading up to those courses. So that's where I feel like we can impact it the most. So
I love it. Yeah. How do people find you? How do they learn about the Institute, and how do they find you if they want to get in touch and learn more?
Sure. So I'll share a QR code with you that gets you on the wait list for the courses. But smilebreathethrive.com. that goes to our new practice, and there's email, there's places where you can send an email. We can get you all the information you want, and we'll be putting out regular content and that sort of thing through that.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks, Dr. Chichetti. I look forward to following along and watching, the Harmony protocol evolve and spread across the industry. It's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am active on LinkedIn, and I post Harmony cases. So if you put there's only a few Chichettis floating around. So if you put that last name in your search bar, I'm sure you'll find me. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. It was really inspiring, informative, and I know you're already leaving an impact, and I look forward to watching over the next decade or more how much more you leave an impact.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.